Welcome back. Now, South Africa is preparing for the upcoming national dialogue set for next month, with inequality posing a threat to both political and economic stability. The dialogue is expected to bring together diverse voices to find common ground on the country's most pressing socio-economic challenges. Business Day's political editor, Hajra Omarjee, joins us with her take on what this dialogue really means for South Africa's future. Hajra, thanks so much for your time this afternoon. And as we get started, perhaps let's talk about the significance of the national dialogue. When we first heard about it, there were mixed views, with some saying it's just another expensive talk shop.
Well, I think if you speak to the majority of South Africans, they will tell you that we are in an urgent need for a second CODESA. Now, CODESA was where political parties and military leaders came together to negotiate the peaceful transition into democracy. The question begs whether we have lived up to the promises that we made in the Constitution, and whether the lives of the majority of South Africans have changed for the better. Up to 1999, you could say that it had, and that is why the ANC got a vast majority of the votes. But since then, corruption has taken root, and President Ramaphosa says things like the national dialogue will help us develop a social compact, because too often we talk to each other and not at each other.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk at each other and not to each other.
So is there going to be a different approach, I guess, that will be used at this dialogue to then, get to those resolutions and live up to what they expect the national dialogue to be?
Well, I think white people in South Africa want to keep their privilege. And that is probably one of the reasons the DA was comfortable pulling out of the national dialogue. I listened very closely to Rolf Meyer, who led the first CODESA negotiations in the early 1990s, and who's now a part of the coordinating team of the national dialogue. And even he said, this is an opportunity for us to look 30 years later in answering the question of whether we succeeded in fulfilling the aspirations set in the Constitution. Even he has a feeling that the majority of South Africans would say no. We've got political power. We have the right to vote. But the economy is plagued by inequality, and that creates social and political instability in the country. And that is simply not sustainable.
And with that being said, you mentioned that many South Africans seem to want this to happen. I can assume that then there is buy-in from different fractions of the economy, from the private sector to civil society. Are we also seeing buy-in, particularly from the youth? I mean, they are the hardest hit when it comes to those socio-economic issues, particularly unemployment.
Absolutely. Our CETAs, which are meant to develop practical skills amongst youth who do not have access to university, simply have not worked. We spend about 200 billion rand on CETAs every year, and yet only around 6% of those that emerge from CETAs are able to find a job. There's nothing wrong with being a builder, a painter, a plumber, a construction worker. But the CETAs are simply not helping us fulfill the aspiration of allowing the youth the qualifications to get a job. And that's particularly timely today because we have a new higher education minister. So we've got to take the tough decisions at the national dialogue as to whether, for example, we get rid of CETAs and allow companies to train staff, for example. We've got to take tough decisions on whether we need provinces to exist. We have to look at the Auditor General's report, which seems to not show vast improvement in fruitless and wasteful expenditure every year. And yet all we do is get report after report every year, and absolutely nothing changes. That creates social and political instability in the country and could lead to political revolution, or South Africa ending up like Zimbabwe. So I think most of us have only South African passports. So it is important for us to engage as a active citizenry so South Africa does not become a Zimbabwe.
Yeah. And just on President Ramaphosa's latest move to sack the Minister of Higher Education, Ngabane, could this be viewed as a bargaining tactic to get the buy-in from, the DA to perhaps participate in the dialogue?
It could be that, but more pressingly, tomorrow is the appropriations vote in Parliament. And the DA was threatening not to vote for the appropriations bill, which would have thrown the national budget into crisis. So it's twofold in that regard.
And talk to me about the concerns of the budget for the national dialogue in particular. 700 million rands has been set aside for it. There's been worries about, the budget that's been set aside and whether it'll be used appropriately. What's your reading on that?
Yeah, that's the thing. Why couldn't we hold it under a tree at Freedom Park for free instead of spending 700 million rand? And Freedom Park would certainly have welcomed that kind of exposure. And it's government owned, so I'm sure the bill would not have been that high. We need to relook at this entire thing of conferencing, as well as big political rallies on things like Workers' Day and even April 27th. I can't remember when last President Ramaphosa even addressed one of those rallies, but we spend hundreds of millions every time they happen. I'm not sure who even watches.
Hajra, let's leave it there. Thanks so much for your time and just taking us through those insights. So that was Business Day's political editor, Hajra Omarjee.